Hello, my name is Lucas. This is Bit of Lit, and I am finally here to talk about a book I have tried to read not once, not even twice, but three times for the Summer of Snopes. Finally, at the end of the Summer of Snopes, in Faulkner in August, I have finished the first of the Snopes Trilogy, being, of course, the Hamlet, written by William Faulkner, published in 1940. Yeah, it was quite challenging for me, as are all of his novels. So I would say that I believe, if memory serves, the easiest one I've read was Sanctuary. Also, my least favorite one, by far. Doesn't even deserve mentioning. Don't know why I did it. Oh, I turned the light off. Anyway. This book was really challenging for me, as are all of Faulkner's novels. But I will do my best to try and explain what I think happened. Should I say it that way? So there's this place, Frenchman's Bend, and around this area is a former plantation which is in ruins, essentially, and sort of been rented out piecemeal by the Varners, who are sort of the people running the town. That is until the Snopes arrive, who are some of the most vile, opportunistic people around. We're introduced to Abner Snopes, if I remember, and his son Flem Snopes. But there are plenty more. There's Io, there's Ike, there's something with an L. I can't remember. There's a couple other ones. Mink, not Lard, not Lubber. What is it? Lubby? I don't remember. There's another one. I think there's more that I'm forgetting. There's whole generations of them. And they come into this town. And essentially what happens is the Varners are sort of the people that everyone goes to. They even have this shop that people buy things from, and they leave the exact amount of change, but nobody's really running the shop until the son of Varner, I forget his name, but the son would come along every now and then to check on stuff, and he'd be there the most often. The father was not really there too much, but he'd be around, right? But until Flem Snopes says, I don't want to do, what my father does. I want to have something a little more steady, essentially. And he weasels his way into being the clerk. And things start changing around town. He's always there. And he's always getting the exact right amount. And making sure nothing gets past him. And if something seems to, he will get it back in due time. He sort of passes the son in terms of his responsibilities there at the storehouse. Or at the store, and then we get a totally different chapter about Eula Varner, the daughter, who I believe was mentioned once or twice in the first part. She is this prepubescent girl who is highly sexualized and is really uncomfortable to read. I mean, she's given a goddess-like status, essentially, and basically written as if she's an idiot, although I'm not too sure that she's actually that the lights are off in her mind. I think she has a very active mind and understands what's going on quite well in her life. Maybe it just kind of plays a part because it gets her what she wants, maybe, which shows its own intelligence, right? And for her, she gets into some trouble by the end because she's 12 at the beginning of that, but then she's 14 later on. This story takes place, I believe, over 5 years, but there's all sorts of timeline things going on, so who really knows? Turned it off again. Eula gets pregnant, but she's not married, right? She's 14. Well, guess who steps in to act as the father? Flem, but he's got conditions, and those conditions benefit him. And he gets Frenchman's Bend. And during this whole time, during those 2 years and everything, him and his family have been doing everything they can to get one over on everybody else, or just profit without any kind of moral scrutiny for their own actions, because they are pure capitalists through and through, particularly Flem. And, someone like that has no ethics. In The Long Summer, which I guess was made into a movie, and then a TV show from what Wikipedia says. We've got a couple different things going on. We've got some timeline trickery with some characters, but we've also got this poor Snopes, Isaac. This is like I've been reading online people saying this is like a funny trilogy. I guess there's a funny part, I believe it's in the third part of Eula's section, where a horse farts and it's like the sonorous organ sounds of his entrails or something like that. But I guess this part in particular is supposed to be funny because Ike is in love with this cow and caresses it. He has the mind of a child, essentially, although he's much, much older than that. He's got some mental disabilities, I guess. And his family has no qualms with selling tickets to the Peep Show in the barn, so that people can watch what Ike is doing with this cow that he loves. I'll leave that to your imagination. I don't really find it funny. I mean, I guess the concept is kind of humorous, but the way that they're using this family member, even if it wasn't a family member, using this person for their own profit, with no concern for it at all, is just kind of extremely disturbing. But that's the Snopes. And anyway, the cow gets out. There's a fire. I'm kind of forgetting what happens. I was very confused and bored and concerned. I feel so bad for Ike. If I remember, the cow is killed. And then, yeah. Anyway, there's this other part. I'm forgetting the name of the character right now, but we get a lot of backstories in this book, which kind of makes it feel really disjointed, and I don't like that about it. That makes it really hard to read because you just kind of, have some timeline trickery. Let's go back and help you understand this character really, really well. Okay, that's really great. But I'm confused. Where are we? When? Not where are we. More importantly, when are we? There's a great little story with him and this woman and his Wallace. I'm forgetting his name right now. And his education and the struggles he went through and how he was encouraged by the woman. But then, there's this horse. It ends up killing her. And he kills the horse, and then we come back to the present, and then he's killed by Mink Snopes for some things that he did. Finally, we go to the last part, where there's this guy from Texas and there's this whole horse trading deal, which is something that Abner Snopes did early on in his career, and the Snopes are known for, with all their horse trading that they've done. There's a whole lot of issues going on with this. It's quite confusing as well, but somebody dies, and then it's a case of who's responsible, who has ownership of the horse, and how and when and why, and what money was exchanged and all that. At the very end, some of these characters, Ratliff, and some of the other ones I'm forgetting their names right now. I'm so confused by this book. Are really curious to... Mink goes to jail because he's told to go find the $50 on the person that he killed, and then he gets caught. And anyway, Ratliff and a bunch of other people find some money and on Frenchman's Bend, and they think to try and buy it from Flem and the Snopes. And Flem doesn't negotiate. He sells it for the price that he wants. But it turns out that this was planted so that he could swindle them. And the Snopes leave, which is pretty funny. There are some humorous moments, I guess. It's really kind of like disturbing in a way, but there's a few things that I want to say. I think this book is really great about showing sort of the decline of the South, of course. I mean, that's a common trope for Faulkner. There's this really amazing paragraph that he wrote. I'd like to read it. This is about page 184 on my Kindle edition, somewhere about halfway through the book. A mile back, he had left the rich, broad, flat river-bottom country and entered the hills, a region which topographically was the final blue and dying echo of the Appalachian Mountains. We've already got this idea of death, right? At the end of something, the Appalachian Mountains. But, I mean, that's just brilliant, subtlety right there, I think. Chickasaw Indians had owned it, but after the Indians, it had been cleared where possible for cultivation, and after the Civil War, something fought for slavery, where the South was at its peak, I suppose, if it ever had a peak, maybe. Forgotten save by small peripatetic sawmills, which had vanished too now. Okay, things have gone, things have really changed, things have disappeared. Their sites marked only by the mounds of rotting sawdust, which were not only their gravestones, but the monuments of a people's heedless greed. Great writing. Now it was a region of scrubby second-growth pine and oak, among which dogwood bloomed until it too was cut to make cotton spindles, and old fields where not even a trace of furrow showed any more, gutted and gullied by 40 years of rain and frost and heat, into plateaus choked with rank sedge and briers loved of rabbits and quail coveys, and crumbling ravines striated red and white with alternate sand and clay. It was toward one of these plateaus that he now ran, running in ashes without knowing it, since the earth here had had time to cool, running among the blackened stubble of last year's sedge, dotted with small islands of this year's incombustible green, and the blasted heads of tiny blue and white daisies, and so onto the crest of the hill, the plateau. I mean, just so many different ways, so many. It's just something, that's completely eroded, completely gone, devastated, grown back up, I guess, with, second growth, sort of like not even good enough. Second growth, and it gets washed away too, and there's just nothing that can really last, I suppose. Man! And of course we know that Frenchman's Bend has been rented out piecemeal, and is not worth a whole lot, not worth nearly as much as people think, as we know from how Flem swindles everybody at the end, even though they think that there's a lot of buried gold, not gold, buried money and treasure and stuff from before the Civil War. They find out that it's actually from Reconstruction, so it's not worth, and it was planted, but it's just kind of like, again, ashes, dust. Another thing that I think is really great, probably another Faulkner trope, I would say, is that it's sort of like how history is passed down, in a sense, and it's through the stories and through the way people talk to each other, in a sense, because our perspective is kind of from the Frenchman's Bend, from the little town and the people around it itself. And I suppose our moral compass, if you can have one in a Faulkner novel, would be Ratliff. There's this really great quote, though. I don't know how related it is to what I just said, but I just wanted to share this because it really moved me in a way. I believe that this is in the page 224. I believe this part is about the guy who was killed, that killed the horse, who killed his woman. He fled, not from his past, but to escape his future. It took him 12 years to learn you cannot escape either of them. Oh, ouch. I felt that one. Anyway, I think it's a pretty solid novel. It was really hard for me to read. Don't know if I'd ever return to it, although I did really enjoy it. I've tried 3 times now, and I finally got through it, so I think I'm done with it, but I would like to go to the town. Really great novel, with beautiful writing, especially that particular part to show the decline of the South, the corruption of the South even, the fall of the South, all that, and also just really great moments in general to show sort of the way history is formed through stories and through discussions, and the way culture can be spread in that way too. Anyway, I don't know if I will finish The Town in time, but I would like to get to that next. But I read a whole bunch of Kurt Vonnegut novels, so who knows?